This is a video cast on rounding numbers to the nearest thousand using a vertical number line. First, if you would, get a piece of paper or your notebook and a pencil, and I'd like for you to mark two endpoints on the first number line here as such, one at that end and one at that end on our vertical number line. And I want you to write the number 10 in here and the number 20 here. I'd like you to pause just a moment, and then what would be the number you would put halfway between 10 and 20 on this number line? If you put 15, you would be correct. Why is 15 halfway between 10 and 20? Because the span from here to here is 10, and halfway there's 5 to get from 15 to 20 and 5 to get from 10 to 15. So 15 is the halfway or midpoint between 10 and 20. Well, let's take and do on the next number line, if you would, write one endpoint as 100 and the other endpoint as 200. Now pause the video and see if you can write the halfway point or midpoint between 0 and 200. If you said 150, you are correct. Why? Because the span between these two endpoints is 100, 100 to 200, that's 100. Halfway of that, of course, is 50. Half of 100 is 50, and half, this is the other. So 50 and 50 makes 100, so 150 is the midway point. You might have noticed a pattern here, 10, 100, 15, 150, 20, and 200. Let's take a look at another one, and I'd like you to put another two endpoints, and this time I'd like you to put 1,000 and 2,000 as the two endpoints, and pause it and see if you can tell what the midpoint between or halfway point between 1,000 and 2,000. If you said 1,500, you would be correct. Again, we look at the span. It's 1,000, and so halfway would be 500. And this would be 500. All right. So you should see a pattern there with each of these. So let's take an example in rounding a number, and if you would, draw another vertical number line and draw the two endpoints, please. Excuse me. And we want to be able to round the number 4,100, excuse me with this, let me move this over, round 4,100 to the nearest 1,000. Okay. So we're trying to round 4,100 to the nearest 1,000. So first of all, the lower, we have to figure out what this lower end unit should be. Well, we're rounding to the nearest 1,000. So let's look at the number. So we're already at 4,000. So this number is between 4,000 and what would be the next 1,000 up? You're right, 5,000. 4,100 is between 4,000 and 5,000. So now let's find the midpoint like we did on the other. So this is 4,000 to 5,000. So what is our midpoint or halfway point between these two numbers? Again, let's go back to what is the distance between 4,000 and 5,000? Well, it's 1,000. So what's half of 1,000? 500. 2 500ths would equal. So what would be the midpoint here? The midpoint would be 4,500. So why is this important? So now on our vertical number line, we have an idea of where we can place numbers. So this is the number, 4,100 is the number we wanted to figure out if it's closer to 4,000 or 5,000. So right now, pause this and put on this vertical number line where you think 4,100 should end up. Okay. If you put somewhere along in here, okay, you're correct. It doesn't have to be exactly, but it should be close. Why? Because 4,100 is only 100 more than 4,000. And we know the midpoint is 4,500, and we know we need another 400ths to get to 4,500. So which is 4,100 closer to? Is it closer to the 4,000, this endpoint, or is it closer to 5,000? Because we're trying to get to the nearest 1,000. We're in between 4,000 and 5,000. If you said 4,000, you would be correct, because we can see on the vertical number line that it's closer. It's only 100 away. So if we rounded this to the nearest 1,000, it would be 4,000. All right, so let's take one more number on here. So let's, if you would, mark where 4,700 would be. So we'll try another number here, 4,700. Mark that on your vertical number line. If you mark somewhere right in here, you would be correct. We know that 4,700 is more than 4,500. It's a couple hundred more, so somewhere in here. So it's more. So is 4,700 closer to 5,000? Or is it closer to 4,000? Well, we can see that it is closer to 5,000. So if we rounded 4,700 to the nearest 1,000, it would be 5,000. So when you come to class tomorrow, if you have any questions about finding the midpoint or halfway point, or how we use that on a vertical number line to round to the nearest 1,000, make sure you bring those questions with you. Thanks, and have a great evening.